Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review Boogeyman. First off, I should just say right off the bat, yesterday I had an incredibly long and hard shooting day. And we went all the way until 9:30 at night, I think. Yeah, about then. And so, like, I am still tired today. I'm still kind of out of it. Uh, it was a pretty bizarre day, but it was also really cool. There was a lot of, fun moments. And I think, uh, I just think shooting in nature, shooting a movie in nature, it is an interesting experience. And I don't know. And also, I don't know if you guys can kind of hear it my voice, but I might have gotten a little sickness. I don't know. Because my lead actress, she said that she had some sort of a little bug. And so I think she might have given it to me as well. And which that's fine with me because, at least it'll kind of slow me down and just make me kind of rest and, try. And I know I sound pretty terrible right now. I didn't sound this bad earlier. So I just got up from a nap. Earlier I watched a new horror movie called Boogeyman, though. I mean, not a new horror movie. See, I told you guys I'm out of it, but it's a new movie that like I haven't reviewed on this channel. That's what I meant. And this movie came out in 2005, and yeah, I mean the title is very like self-explanatory. Like you pretty much know the movie before you even watch the movie in a bad way. And I would say overall that like this movie was a giant wasted opportunity because the premise is like, okay, like let's make a horror movie about a kid and his boogeyman, the boogeyman that's in the closet, that's under the bed, that's in the dark corners. Like that's a great idea. And, the movie starts off okay, kind of. I mean, it definitely has a dated early 2000s feel. And I love this movie as a kid. That's the thing, is that as a kid, I was like 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old when this movie came out. So that was like first grade or second grade. I think I even went to the theaters to see this movie with my brother, I think, or mother. And then I also owned the DVD. I still have the DVD, I think. And I don't know why I liked this movie so much, because it's now that I've seen it as an adult again, unfortunately, I think it's very boring. And I think that, again, it's like wasted opportunities, wasted potential. It's all about this main guy, and as a kid, I guess he has this boogeyman fear, and the boogeyman comes to life somehow, never explained how or what or anything like that, and then the boogeyman takes his father and kills him, and the kid can't do anything about it, and then he grows up, and he goes back to his childhood house to confront the boogeyman. And there's like a couple of kills in the movie too. That's another thing, is that this movie, it falls into the trap that a lot of the early 2000s and kind of 2000s horror movies had, which was they didn't know like what kind of horror movie they wanted to be. So they just kind of like tried to take different elements from, different kinds of horror movies. Like this movie has a lot of psychological elements. Like at the end of the movie, they have this final fight scene, and it's debatable whether or not there's actually like a supernatural force or anything, because it's like there's all these weird, like he has to destroy these, like a toy, he has to destroy this bird decoration in order to defeat the boogeyman. And they're all still conveniently there, by the way. That's another thing, is that this house, I can't remember like if the house had been abandoned or the uncle had the house. I can't remember, because there was like an uncle, he died, and like most of this movie, by the way, is just the main character walking around this house and just looking. And to be fair, because before I get back to the point that I was making about like this movie didn't know what kind of horror movie it wanted to be, this main character, he is an interesting guy, because all he does this whole movie is just walk around or stand around and just tilt his head forward and stare and look around, and it's just like it's like, you have everyone else like at a party, and then he's just like, oh good, there's a corner over there. Like there's this one part where he's at the beginning of the movie where he's at a party with like his girlfriend and friends, and it's the classic thing where they show the past and then they show the present, and the present is like normal and everything before the horror happens. And he goes into this like other room, and he can't even handle, like, because he's scared of closets, and so he sees like this dark closet, and he's just like, woo. it's just the way that it's played off. I don't think that it was developed properly. And so that gets in back to my other point, is that throughout the movie they try to mix it up by like, oh, here's a jump scare. And they had like 15 jump scares in the whole movie. They were awful, by the way. Like a lot of them were really loud and obnoxious. They're not scary. It's just they're annoying. And that's another thing that I hate about 2000s horror movies, is the jump scares. Because there's nothing scary about a jump scare. I mean, it cheapens the horror. Unless the jump scare is done really, really smartly, and almost kind of like it's disguised. Like it's like, yeah. But it's not in this movie, like there's so many dumb jump scares, and it's like they're just trying to sprinkle in these different elements of horror so that they can try to make as many people like it as possible. Because the story is just, there's hardly a story that's even there. And I think that okay, so another thing that I should say, because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Another thing I should say is that the movie has a very distinct, stylish look to it. It has kind of like a cold look to it. And I actually really like that. That's one of the things that I really loved about this movie, was the way that it looked, the way that it was shot, and then the color grading. I thought that's a really cool and unique, stylish thing that they did just for this movie. Now the problem is that there's a lot of times throughout the movie where I couldn't even tell that they were in a different location. Because it was so, everything looked dark, dreary, like a Zack Snyder movie almost, but worse. And I could not tell that they were in like another house or something sometimes. And I was like, okay, like that's bad. And then another thing is, again, the movie doesn't know what kind of horror movie it wants to be, because they never really get into what this boogeyman is. I mean, I guess he's a spirit, he's a demon. I have no idea what this thing is. And I've seen this movie like 10 times. 9 times as a kid, 1 time as an adult. And it's like, it's just a thing. I don't know what it is. Like, there's nothing about it that's scary except for it's the unknown. Like, that's basically what it is it's the unknown. But the problem is that the unknown kills people in this movie. You know, I mean, this boogeyman, he kills, like, let's see, one, two, I think 2 or 3 people the whole movie. A very, very small body count. That was kind of disappointing because this movie also had a lot of, like, CGI, a lot of really bad CGI. And I think that what really would have helped the movie, to be quite honest, is some old school practical effects, some good kills. You know, like, that would have kind of strengthened the movie a little bit as a horror movie. But you still have the big issue, which is, what is the story? You have this guy, I mean, as a kid, he by the way, this is another thing about the movie, because this movie, I really probably could do, like, a commentary on it, because it's just so bizarre and hilarious. As a kid, he was friends with this redhead girl, and she's played by the actress who is in Bones. She's actually really cool. I like her. She's a good actress. And but what's weird is that there's this kind of, like, subplot of, like, will they, won't they? Because currently, like, she's single and she's just, like, a daddy's girl. And then he has a girlfriend who's, like, this hot blonde. She is, like, traditional, like, the typical early 2000s blonde. And, you know, it's like, oh, will he break up with her? But the thing is it's like, it was so weird. It's like, why did he have to have these 2 love interests? Because they never did anything with that, you know? I mean, they wanted to have all this psychological horror, but they never really did very many psychological character choices. So, like, the girlfriend, she disappears for, like, 90% of the movie, and then she shows up all of a sudden out of nowhere, and then she gets killed. And then she's gone until a hallucination thing. And I will say, the best scene in the whole movie is there's, like, this hallucination scene in a bathtub. The bathtub water turns black and muddy, and then the girlfriend is in it and she's trying to get out of it. That was actually kind of creepy, kind of scary, a little tiny bit. But then they ruined it with this terrible CGI. The monster picks her up out of the bathtub and picks up the water too, and somehow just carries her in the water out of the room. So if that doesn't sound stupid, then I don't know what does. Like, just because how does that even make sense? Like, the water is picked up with the girl and carried out of the room by an unknown force of evil. And who even knows what this force is, by the way? Like, what is this boogeyman? What is he? There's nothing. And, like, you think, like, even in Michael Myers, even in Halloween, even in the original Halloween, you have Michael Myers. He's supposed to be, like, the force of nature, force of evil, bad guy. But he has a ton of little tiny hints at a character that make you think, like, oh, maybe he is just a guy. Maybe he is just a man. You know, but it's like, he's not. He's the boogeyman. But with this character, it's like, there's nothing. There's nothing that they give this character, this bad guy. And so it's really hard to even kind of care about what's going on in the movie, because it's like, it's one of those movies, too, where you'd think that they would have, like, a stupid twist where it's like, oh, it's all in his head, and he's the bad guy or something. Because at least that would have made sense. Because how did his dad die? How did all these other kids die? How was none of this investigated, by the way, by, like, the police or detectives? Like, they didn't even establish anything like that. like, like have some sort of like, oh, it's really creepy. There's like a cold case, a string of cold cases, and they didn't have anything. It was just like, it was just a bizarro, like, all the events in the movie were like contained in this little area, and I guess in this little area, like, anything can happen. And again, like, I don't know what the deal is with this childhood house, because it's just so fucking convenient how these things that, like, he has to destroy at the end are all still there in his bedroom. They're all still perfectly intact. There's this action figure, by the way, that's like central to the story. This action figure who the Boogeyman looks like the figure. And so that's what I'm saying, where it could have all been in his head, because, I mean, he's imagining things. He could be imagining that the figure came to life. But instead, it's like, basically, they're saying that, like, the Boogeyman is an evil spirit, I guess, that just happens to look exactly like this random action figure. And what even is this action figure? Like, what's the story with that action figure? The dad, at a certain point in the movie, he was saying, like, oh, I tell him stories about the Boogeyman, it's no big deal. And but there's never really any explanation of anything. It's just like this boring, slow, drawn-out movie where this guy walks around a house, walks around the areas, and there's this one part, and this is how bad this movie is, by the way. There's this one part where he scares himself by looking at himself in the mirror with a hammer. He has a hammer in his hand, and he walks up to the mirror and gets scared of himself. I mean, that is just really, really hilarious. And it's like, you think about, in reality, like, there are moments for jump scares. There is, I guess, one or two good jump scares. There's one really creepy scene where he's in bed with his girlfriend, and then his mom is in bed with him, and she's like a crazy, like, mom character, and I thought that was kind of creepy. And then there was also a moment where a bird flew at his car and got killed on his windshield. I thought that was kind of creepy, but I don't like the jump scare, loud noises thing. Now, here's a subplot of the movie that takes way too much time. There's this little girl, and the main character, he finds her in his house, and, he just thinks, oh, it's a little girl, and she wanted to explore this abandoned house, and apparently other people have come in here, and they never stole anything. I mean, it's just... they just went in there and left, or they just went in there and danced around or something, or they played cops and robbers, or, whatever. But this little girl, she actually kind of looks like the little boy Michael Myers from the Halloween remake, which was pretty hilarious. And what was that kid called again? I can't remember. God, I really wish I could remember, but she looks like him. And the main guy, he finds her, and he's like, okay. And this is how he sounded, by the way, the entire movie. Hey, I'm just a normal guy. And his first line in the movie, he's at a party. He's got like a hard lemonade, like a Mike's Hard Lemonade. And he's like, oh, this is going to get ugly. I mean, you could... And the whole movie, he's just like, I told you I was scared of closets? What? Let's go into the dark room together now. Oh, there's must be a boogeyman. We gotta get out of here. We gotta get out of here quickly. I'm gonna sit in the corner and stare at the closet for 5 more minutes. And then the camera, like, fucking spins around him and shit. And it's like, what the hell's going on here? But anyways, he's like, okay, little girl, where do you live? I'm gonna take you home. And he comes to find out that her dad, like, he tried to find her, and he ended up, like, restraining himself to a chair. And see, this is where the Mandela effect comes in, because I could have sworn that the main character, that he ended up doing the same thing to himself at the end of the movie. I could have sworn that he was like, okay, screw it, I need to confront the boogeyman, and then he, like, restrains himself on a chair, faces the closet. I could have sworn that that's what happened, but it didn't. But there's this big twist. They try to have this big plot twist where the little girl turned out to have been dead the whole time. And it's like, wow, I wonder what movie they stole that from. You know, like The Sixth Sense, you know, like something like that, you know, where they're just like, oh, that's really creepy. This character, they've been dead the whole time. Wow, I never would have guessed that before. You know, they did the same thing, by the way, in R.L. Stine's Welcome to Deadhouse book, where the whole twist of that book is that the townspeople are already dead. And it's like, you pretty much already figured that out, you know? I mean, the book is called Welcome to Deadhouse, and it wasn't a big shock, it wasn't a big surprise, and they treated it like it was a huge revelation in this movie. And I didn't know what was up with that. Okay, and yeah, it's a frustrating movie. There's a lot of funny moments too. I should have probably written them down, but I've been so tired today, and I've just been so worn out, and you know, yeah. So the movie ends too. I do kind of like how the movie ends, because it is kind of like a nice little, like, happy kind of like, hey, like, they kind of earned it, like, because at the very end, after he defeats the bad guy, which, again, I don't know what this boogeyman is or how he really defeated him, but he stands in front of the window and opens up the window, and you see the sunlight coming into this dark and ugly house that just is just disgusting, a disgusting place. But it was such a great idea to end the movie like that, after the whole movie has just been so dark and dreary and dull, that you have that warmthness and that light at the end. And so I like that, but again, lastly, I guess the last thing I would say before I get to my food review is I just don't understand why his girl best friend as a kid had to be, like, in this movie, because it really just kind of seems like they could have had the girlfriend there, but they had, I don't know, like, maybe they needed one more kill, but it just, I didn't like that, because they never did anything with it. You know, they never confronted that. You know, even at the end of the movie, he never even gets with her. He never gets together with her. So what was the whole point of that? Like, I guess he had to face his fears with his childhood friend, but, you know, there was no character development from her, except, you know, she didn't really believe him, and then at the end of the movie, she believed him. And then the bad guy got defeated. And so that's not really a character arc, though. That's just kind of like a trait that a character has, like, oh, you don't believe the main character. And, yeah. So this movie was a disappointment. Now, here's the thing. I hope that I don't regret this, but I am interested in watching the sequels. I know it's not the same guy. I mean, obviously, he already defeated his boogeyman. But, you know, all kinds of people all over the earth have their boogeymen. You know, like, I'm sure there's some sweet little girl in Asia in China, and she has a boogeyman, and she needs to deal with it. I'm sure, like, some delivery driver in England has, like, his own boogeyman, or, like, some, like, what do they call it? The fucking, the winter people. Not the winter people, but what do they call those things? I swear to God, they make the igloos. They eat the fat. They eat a lot of fat. They deal with the polar bears. What are those fucking people called? The tribesmen, the hunters. I swear to God, I don't know why I have to look this up. What the hell? Okay, what are people in snow areas that make igloos? The Inuit. No, what are they called? What the fuck are these people called? They were called something. No, what an Eskimo. Oh, see, guys, I'm not completely fucked. I just remembered that. See, and you got never try to test my memory again, okay? Because I will eventually remember, and I will succeed and prevail. I have remembered. There is an Eskimo, by the way, and he's got a boogeyman, and the boogeyman is in his fucking igloo, and he's got to confront that shit with his Eskimo girlfriend and his Eskimo girl best friend as a kid. Fuck. That actually could... Has there ever been a horror movie about Eskimos? I don't think so. And so... There should be. There should be, like, horror movies about all types of people and all types of places. Come up with new ideas instead of just, remaking Friday the 13th for the millionth fucking time. So anyways, in terms of food, yesterday, when I was filming, we took a break because we got off to a terrible start. I will be doing, like, a podcast talking about, like, the behind the scenes, but we only filmed one sequence in, like, 3 hours. It took 3 hours to film one sequence, and we were really behind, kind of, and we needed to go eat lunch somewhere, and I was really frustrated, to be quite honest. Like, I was really, like, just in a funk. And because I expected it to be such an easy experience, and I felt like I was in a funk. And we ended up going to this diner, or this cafe, a really, like, kind of old school cafe diner thing. And we had some really good food. We had, Savvy and I, my lead actress, we shared an appetizer of buffalo cauliflower, which I thought was actually really, really good. That's kind of like what vegans do when they have, like, hot wings. They'll have, like, cauliflower. I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was really good. I wouldn't ever replace it, with for chicken wings. I'd much rather have a chicken wing. But I would definitely eat it again, because cauliflower is really good for you too. And yeah, we love that. And then I ended up having a turkey bacon ranch sandwich and chili. So I had half a sandwich and a bowl of chili, which it was supposed to just be soup, but the soup of the day was chili. I really wasn't, like, in the mood to have chili, but I kind of got interested to see, like, what would this diner chili be like. And in fact, I probably should have just kept it and just eaten it today to, like, not waste the food. But I would actually love to go back there again. But I thought maybe I would really, really like this chili. And it is probably the grossest chili that I've ever had. it is even grosser than Skyline chili, which I have only had once. This chili, it was sweet. It tasted like it had sugar in it. It was like a sugary sweet chili, and it was so soft, the beef. It was like the consistency of dog food, and there were hardly any beans in the whole thing. It was basically just juice and beef and a couple of beans here and there, and it just, oh god, it was bad. It was so bad. And Safi loved it. Safi thought it was like the greatest chili. Well, no, I don't think she would say it's the greatest chili, but she loved it. And she was so shocked that I didn't like it. And it's like, I don't know, like, I like good chili. You know, I don't like a sweet chili that tastes like it has sugar in it. So, yeah, that's what this movie is for me, is that chili that I had yesterday. The chili was like, it was just a disappointment, and it was like, okay, this could have been a lot better, because they really cooked well at this diner, this cafe. Like, I think it was called like Kelly's Cafe, and it had like an Irish thing on the sign or something, and it was a really nice experience, actually. Like, I love the food, I love the service, I would love to go there again. It's just that the chili I hated, and the chili reminds me of this movie, because this movie was just a disappointment. You know, I don't know why I like this movie as much as I did as a kid. And another thing, too, just to add insult to injury, is that this isn't it a PG-13? Let me check. Let me check really quickly. Yep, it is. This is a PG-13 horror movie. And, you know, PG-13 horror movies are like pornos without sex. You know, it's just like, what's even the fucking point? You know, I mean, there can be good PG-13, PG horror movies, but this is something that they did in the 2000s after Scream was so popular, is instead of realizing, like, taking the good lessons from Scream, they decided, okay, let's make everything like young and hipsterish, and let's make everything PG-13 so that teenagers will want to go see it. But the mistake that they made was the fact that, like, teenagers would go see R-rated movies. You know, like, teenagers don't care about the rating of a movie. Okay, like, my brother, he took me to see Daredevil when I was like, wait, when did Daredevil come out? Because my mom was really concerned about 2003. So I was 5 years old, and my brother took me to see Daredevil, which is like, you know, I mean, that's not like a movie for a 5-year-old, but like, it just shows, like, teenagers, they don't give an F about the rating of a movie. You know, I mean, like, if anything, they would probably look and see, like, oh, it's a PG-13 horror movie. That's a horror movie for pussies. You know, and then they'd be like, okay, what do you guys want to see? You want to go see the new Marvel movie? No, I don't think so. I'm kind of sick of Marvel. Okay, let's just go home and watch some episodes of Shameless. So that's what they would do. You know, and that's my impression of a modern teenager, by the way. And I wouldn't even know anything about teenagers anymore, because I'm 26 fucking years old. So anyways, please like this video and comment. What did you think of Boogeyman? And if you've seen the sequels, what do you think about those? Because I will probably watch them, because I am curious to see, like, if they got any better, which I think they must have gotten worse, or else, you know. I would say, too, maybe Boogeyman is a good movie to remake, just because it had so much potential, and maybe they could finally, you know, crack the code with it. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest movie reviews. And I did this whole review, by the way, because one person voted. I put out a poll, and I said, what video do you want to see today? And one person voted, and they said they wanted to see a horror movie review. And this is your horror movie review. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon. Oh, yeah, and this is probably the first post-credits scene that I've done for a movie review in a little while. But I just had to, because when I was looking for a picture to use as the thumbnail for the movie review, I remembered there's this hilarious scene where the main guy is in this mental asylum for kids. And there's this little girl, and she's in like her own room, and she's screaming. And he runs in there, and instead of trying to calm her down and kind of like try to help her, he like starts to freak out, and he's like screaming at the top of his lungs, as if like him screaming is gonna make her like calm down. And because what happened was the Boogeyman visited her conveniently when he was there, and so that was hilarious. You know, he was pressing a button, he was like, the camera was like shaking all around. And that's another thing I forgot to mention, is that I really loved the camera work in this movie, because even though some of it is kind of cringy and bad, I'm kind of nostalgic for this kind of camera work in some horror movies. Like, it is kind of like Saw, the way that the camera spins around and it just goes crazy and it's so shaky and it's just weird movements, but it's stylish and it's cool. It's a change of pace. But yeah, that scene was really funny, you know, because it's like I had a similar experience last week, you know, where something happened, and you know, instead of doing that, I was just very calm, and I was very calm to the other person too, and I didn't just start screaming at the top of my lungs and just freaking out, like a crazy person, because, why would you do that? Like, it's just stupid. So, yeah, anyways, bye once again.